The new Foster the People album, Paradise State of Mind, brings back the major 70s disco vibes with a dose of Tame Impala for good measure, and it features some really truly fun songs. Let's break it all down on this edition of Rock Album Review, or should I say Disco Album Review. Hey everybody, it's Nick here with you. Welcome back to the channel. Paradise State of Mind is the fourth studio album from Foster the People. It's the follow-up to 2017's Sacred Hearts Club. This is the first full-length album that we've gotten from Foster the People since 2017. It's their first studio album in 7 years, but they did release an EP in 2020. It was called In the Darkest of Nights, Let the Birds Sing. That's pretty deep. And I wouldn't say that I'm a diehard fan of Foster the People, but I've really enjoyed their music over the years, especially that debut album, Torches, that came out in 2011 with those huge songs like Pumped Up Kicks, Houdini, Hell in a Beat, Call It What You Want. That album was a hit machine. And I also really love the Supermodel album from 2014, songs like Coming of Age, Pseudologia, Fantastica, I hope I said that right, as well as Best Friend. I think that album really showed how great of a songwriter Mark Foster and Foster the People are. I also really love the song Doing It for the Money from Sacred Hearts Club. I can't say I know the rest of that album very well, but that is actually really one of my favorite indie rock songs that I've heard in a long time. And I hope you're ready to shake your ass, because on this new album, Paradise State of Mind from Foster the People, it's disco all night long and it's a funky party. And Mark Foster has said that this new album, Paradise State of Mind, is very much influenced by the music of the 1970s. We're talking about disco, we're talking about funk, we're talking about pop, and it definitely sounds like that from the very first notes of the very first track, which is called See You in the Afterlife. You know it's time to get down. And immediately you find yourself in the John Travolta in Saturday Night Fever kind of vibe. You're in full Bee Gees territory, which is absolutely fine for me because I love me some Bee Gees. And to me, the Bee Gees influence is most apparent on tracks like Lost in Space and Take Me Back, which are two of the singles from this record. They are both very funky while having those big epic disco strings. It really gives it that 70s disco vibe. You feel like you're going back in a time machine. In addition to the disco vibes, there's tons of funk on here as well. There's some awesome funk synth bass on here happening. I would say the piano, keyboard, synthesizer work on this album is absolutely next level, which has always been a trademark of the Foster the People sound. But Mark Foster and Isam Innes, they're absolutely crazy on the keyboards. But it made me think, can we get a synth off instead of a dance off or a rock off? Can we get a synth off between Foster the People and Kevin Parker from Tame Impala? Because I definitely hear some Kevin Parker creeping through on some of the tracks on this album, especially songs like The Holy Shangri-La and Chasing Low Vibrations, both very cool songs. And I want to see who would win in a synth-off between Tame Impala and Foster the People. But even with that throwback to the old school 70s disco sound, they still make it their own on this record. It still very much sounds like a Foster the People record, but with a poppier edge, especially on songs like Let Go, which was one of my favorite songs on the record for sure. And the title track, Paradise State of Mind, was really fun and breezy to me. I think this whole album has a very nice, easy feel to it, very easy to listen to, but this song in particular sounded more traditional Foster the People. It had less of that disco edge, but it was still in step with the rest of the theme and sound of the rest of the album. And there are some weirder tracks on Paradise State of Mind that are a little bit far out. I think they went a little bit down the rabbit hole on these tracks, which isn't a bad thing at all, but Feed Me was definitely one of those tracks. It was very synth heavy, very bass heavy, and could really stand alongside sonically along the big pop artists of the day, like stand alongside a Dua Lipa record or something. And then they go further down the rabbit hole on this album with a song called Glitchzig, which almost had a German influence in there, a little bit of Kraftwerk happening in there, and a crazy horn outro, which I really liked. And I enjoyed most of the tracks on this record. My faves would definitely be Lost in Space, Take Me Back, Let Go, Paradise State of Mind, The Holy Shangri-La, Chasing Vibrations. Those would definitely be my favorite tracks on the record. I also really love the final song on this album. It was called A Diamond to Be Born. It had this awesome synth vocal intro happening on there. It was really, really cool. And then it got some Tame Impala-esque sonics to it as well. It was a really, really cool way to close out the album. That's not always the case with albums that I review here on the channel. Sometimes the last track can be a little bit boring and you're just waiting for the album to end. But I felt like this album, the length was appropriate. And by the time we got to that last track, I felt like it was a really strong listen, and it ended on a strong note with A Diamond to Be Born. And if I was going to call out some of the weaker tracks on A Paradise State of Mind, I would say Glitch Zig, maybe not one of my favorite tracks on the record. Still not really that bad. Sometimes I Want to Be Bad was also an okay track, but didn't really jump out to me, and I didn't think that was the strongest track on the record. And I think that Foster the People are a really talented band, or a talented duo, which I think is basically what they are now, aside from their touring members. However they want to be classified. This album was very fun to listen to sonically. It was a very fun headphone record to listen to. A lot of cool little earworms in there that it was really fun to listen to, and it's got some great songs on it as well. So I think this is a really great record. And then you realize that the album has two distinct sides to it. It blends together, but there are two sides to it. The first half is very much that Bee Gees, disco, strings, pop sound on the first half of the record, and then it transitions to more of a Tame Impala-esque, psychedelic, epic, far-out rock record. So I felt like it had two distinct sides to it that were both very strong. And some great production on here as well from Paul Epworth, who has worked with the band on some of their past records. He's also produced big artists like Adele and Florence and the Machine. Not saying that I know all the hallmarks of a Paul Epworth record, or what the stamps of his production are, but this album is very well produced. It was very enjoyable to listen to. It sounds great, so I have to give some shout outs and some kudos to Paul Epworth on the production. And as someone who's not a diehard Foster the People fan, I love a good chunk of their songs, but maybe fallen off over the years, haven't really listened to a lot of their records in full. I found this to be a very fun and enjoyable listen, and I think Foster the People are truly a great band. And this album also kind of reminded me of the Foo Fighters Hail Satin EP that they released as the DGs back in 2021, which was their Bee Gees cover record. Similar to this, it just shows a deep appreciation and love for a truly great and unique genre of music. I know that disco might not be cool in the world of rock, but I think there's a lot of great music from that era, and it's nice to hear that Foster the People are reflecting that on this new record, whether it be disco, funk, or everything else in between. It's very fun and positive music, and this album had that vibe for sure. So I really enjoyed listening to this new album from Foster the People called Paradise State of Mind. I'm going to give it a solid 4 out of 5. And that is it, guys. That is my disco album review of the new record from Foster the People called Paradise State of Mind. Let me know what you thought of the record in the comments below. Make sure to like this video if you like this review. If you like the channel, you want to subscribe and check out more of my videos, make sure to smash that subscribe button. You can follow me on social media across platforms at Nick Chino Music, and make sure to check out my band online as well. If you love music like Oasis and Weezer and Foo Fighters and stuff like that, you'll probably like us as well. You can check us out at foolsunion.com. But I'll see you guys again for another rock album or disco album review here on the channel. Whatever it is, I'll see you guys for that. Until then, rock on, everybody.